Hi guys, it's Kelly here, and I'm back with another video for Picket Studios. Today we're using lots of Christmas stuff. This is Candy Cane Christmas, Winter Blooms, Deck the Halls, Peaceful Christmas Flowers. I feel like I'm missing one. The Christmas tags and ornaments. So as you can tell, these are all holiday themed. We're gonna make 3 cards. But before we go on, the reason that I'm using all of these different sets, outside of the fact that I illustrated all of them and I love how they work together, is Picket Fence is actually having a Christmas sale, 30% off a Christmas sale through December 23rd. So all of these, if you have not picked them up yet, and maybe you're thinking about next year's Christmas cards, or Sweet Holiday. I knew there was one. That was the first set I ever did with them, was Sweet Holiday. But anyway, so we're going to be using all of these combined together to make 3 Christmas cards or holiday cards with matching tags. And so I just wanted to let you know about the sale in case I'm posting it the same day that the sale ends. So I know I don't want you to get cut short because of me. So anywho, this is Winter Blooms. I have stamped the outside frame and I'm going to now stamp the inside. I stamped my backgrounds on Canson Monteval watercolor paper, and they are cut slightly smaller than an A2 size card. So instead of being 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, they are 4 by 5 1/4. So I'm going to have a border all the way around my card. In addition to stamping my watercolor backgrounds, I am also stamping them onto Neenah 80-pound colored 80-pound why can't I think of it? Solar white cardstock. And this is my go-to for Copic coloring. Here I'm just showing you the hellebores that are in Sweet Holiday are also used in Winter's Blooms, so that those sets will work together. Additionally, if you take out the center stamp here in Winter Blooms, the cupcake from Sweet Holiday, not the one with the candy cane, the other one with just the flowers, will also fit into this frame. If you have a birthday or something in December that you would like to make a card for. So here I am stamping this hellebore, and I created a little mask for it. I wanted to kind of try to fill in the little gap between the frame and the middle image. I'm going to be honest with you, I might have went a little bit overboard. No big shock there, right? Because I'm always trying to do more. But if you don't have to do that. Basically, the technique, having the matching tags and dies, you could absolutely stamp them separately. I'm not going to do that. This is supposed to be quick. So I'm just going to stamp the background once, and I'm going to make my card and my tags from the same background. Something to note about the Candy Cane Christmas, this is the only one that does not have a coordinating die. So I am using it because I love the imagery, but understand that if you want to recreate the card that I made, you will have to fussy cut it or use a brother scan and cut. There is no die for that one. So yeah. I'm super excited. I know that this style of card making is not going to be for everyone, but it's totally okay. And again, I'm stamping that candy cane image again, because these are the ones that I'm going to use to create my cards. So we're doing a full background, however you like the look of that. And then an additional image, stamped onto Neenah. So full background on watercolor paper and the image by itself on Neenah. Here, these are the Peaceful Christmas flowers. It's 3 different groupings of poinsettias, and I'm just going to tuck them into each other to fill up my whole background. And then once I get them stamped down, I'm going to take the smaller one and move it into that opening down in the bottom left just to fill up the whole thing. Because when we're creating a pattern in our background, we do want it to hang over the edge. It makes it look as if the pattern continues on, and that's really what we're looking for. Now, for this one, I did stamp all 3 of the flowers because I wasn't sure what I was going to use, and I ended up using the single and the double. The single small one and the double, not the large one. But now I have it stamped for something else. So now with this one, remember, this is the one that I don't have a die for. So I'm using some of the snowflakes from the Candy Cane Christmas and some of the snowflakes from that Sweet Holiday, and I'm going to use that to do some white heat embossing. This is going to make our background more interesting, a little bit more dynamic, bring in another technique with that emboss resist, just because the candy cane isn't as full of an image as the other images are, so it does have a little bit more gapping. So treated with our anti-static tool, stamped in some pigment white ink, and then heat and set it with some white embossing powder. Here I've picked out some distress inks. This is what I'm going to do my watercoloring with. You can do your watercoloring with whatever medium you prefer. And honestly, I showed you the lumberjack plaid, but ultimately I'm not even going to end up using that. I'll show you. I'll show you how forgiving this technique is. So I'm going to wet the whole background or wherever I want the water to flow. And then I am going to smush down my inks onto my glass mat. You just need any non-porous work surface. And then from there, I can pick up the color and kind of start dropping it in. Now, this particular technique is a little bit more messy. It kind of lets the colors blend and do their thing, and it's not for everybody. So once again, I want to reiterate, you can color your background however you want. It doesn't have to be watercolor for this to work. It doesn't have to be a messy watercolor. It can be a super tight watercolor and with a light wash of a color in the background. You can do, or you can just color the whole thing. Oh, here's where I'm adding that lumberjack plaid color. It's not, or lumberjack red, whatever it is. It's not good for this combination. Me no likey. But thankfully watercolor is very, very forgiving. It gives us a lot of grace. And so I'm going to be able to fix it and not have to restamp everything. So anyway, whatever coloring medium you want to use in the background, that's totally fine because the technique will work with whatever you've got going on. So here I'm basically the whole background is wet and I'm just picking up color and I'm dropping it in. Here's where I decide I don't like this. This is not for me. So I'm going to go in while it's still wet with a clean paper towel and I'm just going to try to pick up as much color as I can. If that's not enough color, I'm going to spray it down. Here you see me just spraying it with a mister. I'm going to let it sit for a second, and then I'm going to go back in with the clean side of that paper towel, and I'm going to try to blot up even more of that pigment. And then I'm just going to set this aside, and I'm going to work on another piece because it's totally saturated at this point, and I want to be able to control where my watercolor is going to go. So here, this is that background where I kind of, stamped, masked, and filled in the gap. It is busy. I'm not telling anything you don't know. You can clearly see. But we're gonna make it work. So I'm dropping in the pinks. I should tell you, okay, so the colors that are down are Peacock Feathers, Uncharted Mariner, Kitsch Flamingo, Picked Raspberry, Seedless Preserves, Mustard Seed, and that Lumberjack Red, which I'm not using at all. So just disregard that. And here, I like a bolder color. And if you also like a bolder color, one of the things that you can do is, instead of smushing down your ink pad and picking up the color, you can use the re-inker for the ink pad and just put like one drop down, and it's going to give you a lot more intense color faster that will cut down the amount of layers that you have to do. Because I have 2 kids and 2 dogs and a husband, and so when it comes to crafting, my patience wears thin. Because I have to use my patience everywhere else. So I don't like to spend the time doing multiple layers. Is it prettier if you take the time to let them dry in between? Yeah, probably. But I don't. So here, what you're seeing down at the bottom of the screen, and I apologize if it's distracting, is one of my sweet, sweet children who has come up to my craft room and is trying to aid me in my painting. So if you see little extra fingers at the bottom, I have not grown a 3rd arm. That's my child. So here, now that this is kind of dried back some, I'm going to go ahead, re-wet it, and now I'm going to go in and, try to put those colors back in. Now, normally when I am doing something like this, I do try to pay attention to the colors so that I don't get mud. So complementary colors, blue and orange, red and green, those things will typically make a little bit of mud. So I am trying to be conscientious of that. Now, pink and yellow green are also complementary colors, but I'm not using a true green. I'm using a teal, which has blue in it, and blue, like blue, green, and pink. They can work together. I did have to watch where I put that mustard seed, but I wanted it to create kind of a subtle yellow green in the background. So just play around with whatever colors that you like. Here, why am I putting that red back in there? Why? I tried it again and I was like, oof, girl, you don't like that. You still don't like that. Why did you do that to yourself? And I'm going to go back in there with another paper towel and I'm just going to take it right out of there. Like blot, blot, blot. And then I'll go back in with some pink because the red was just not it, y'all. It was not good. So now this is the last background that we're going to use, and this is the Peaceful Christmas Flowers. And as you can see, I've used the re-inker for the picked raspberry and also the peacock feathers. And so I'm able to put down much more intense color quicker than the ones where, maybe I just smushed down the ink pad. So here it's all the same thing. And again, I know messy watercolor isn't for everybody, and that's totally fine. It's not the technique for everyone. And I'll be honest with you, like I'll show them to you when they're dry and I don't love them. I'm pretty transparent. I try to be. I don't love the way that they look, but I also believe in letting things dry and then seeing what you can do with them. I can always spray them down and go in and try to remove that color because watercolor paper is expensive and I'm too cheap to waste it. That's just the reality of who I am. So here they are already dry and I am going to push forward. I have faith. So here's the technique and how we're going to get to a tag and a card that match from the same background. So here I have a tag die. It's like a mid-sized tag, and I'm just kind of moving it around to see what portion of the image that I want to cut out. And then I'm going to tape it down and I'm going to run it through my die cutting machine. The only thing I will tell you is just be conscientious of your edges, like make sure the portion that you want to cut out isn't right up to an edge, or it's going to be pretty hard to cover it up, which is ultimately the game plan to make this work so that you don't notice that it is missing. With watercolor paper, please, please, please make sure that your background is completely dry, because if you stick some pixie tape or any other kind of tape to your background while it is still damp, you are definitely running the risk of ripping it. So please don't do that. So here you can see I'm going at it a couple of different angles to cut out these tags. I'm not worried about that because they're all pretty much centralized, and then I can use the tags. Now, originally I thought that I was going to put these tags on a colored background. Not what I ended up doing, but that's what you just saw me there doing. Now, for these, I am going to use my alcohol markers. In my case, it's going to be Copics, but you can use colored pencils or Olos or whatever you want to color with. And I am going to go in right over the watercolor on these tags, and I am going to color my images. These are a little less traditional because of the color families that I chose to work with. You know, a more like rosy colored pink and a violet, a teal, and a I guess a more true green kind of. But I'm just going right over top of what's already there. I personally love the look of the alcohol markers over the watercolor. It pushes the watercolor to the back. It's super dynamic and makes the imagery look so interesting because you do have the background watercolor that's contributing texture and color variation. I personally love that. If you told me, like, Kelly, what card would you pick, the card or the tag? In this particular set, I would pick the tag because I love the way that those alcohol markers look over the watercolor. Now, you could also do this to the entirety of the background and have really bold, so it's so pretty. It's just so pretty. I just love it. I don't know how else to describe it to you. So anyway, you could color the whole background like that. I chose not to. With the color or with the cards, I chose to let the focal point be on the colored images. But with the tags just have, you know, the color right over the top. So you see me here coloring the candy cane. And then, so I'm not going to show you necessarily the coloring of the candy cane on the Nina, but I will show you the Christmas flowers and the winter blooms. So I'm just repeating the same color families that you see in the background because, again, we're not trying to make mud. We don't want things to be, you know, muddy or difficult to make out. We want to keep them they're already busy enough, you know what I'm saying? We've got a couple of different techniques going on, so I don't want to add to the crazy, so I'm just repeating the same colors, and that's going to keep it really cohesive, and so it's not like, oh my gosh, what's happening here? So here, these ones have already been colored. I did just want to show you the yellow combination that I used for the centers of the poinsettias and the centers of the hellebore and the amaryllis here. The hellebores usually don't have yellow centers, but it's my card and I'll do what I want. So here's the tags in their entirety. They're all colored up. And then we're going to move on to some of the die cutting before we move on to the next part. So here, these are, you can see I've cut all of the tags out of the colored cardstock because that's what I thought I was going to be using. And then I'm also going to cut the tags out of white because this is going to be my backer. In order to make sure that my when I run it through the die cut, it's not gross. I am going to use my magic mat from scrapbook.com. This keeps it so that the bottom of the die cut plate doesn't press into the white, because you're using the magic mat. And that way, when you're looking, like, you have a smooth surface that you can write on for the back of your tag, and it has none of those unsightly impressions. Okay, so there's that. So now let's talk about the coloring here. So I told you before, I'm repeating all the same colors. For this particular one, I have decided that in order to give it a more round appearance, I am going to add some shading from the centers out where all of the petals are meeting each other. But then I'm also going to add a little bit of shading on the tips as well. And this will help give the flower just a slightly more round appearance. If you don't like it or you think that makes your flower too dark, that's fine. You do not need to add the shading to the tips. I would still add the shading to the center though, because that's where you're going to get the majority of your dimension. I do also want to say I do not color this fast. This is sped up because, again, we're making 3 cards and 3 tags in one video. And it's the holiday season, so I know you guys are busy. I'm not trying to keep you here all day. But if you're like, hey, I would like more, I would like it to be a bit slower so I could really see what you're doing, or I really want to follow along. You're watching on YouTube, in the bottom, if you hover over the screen, there is a gear, looks like a little gear. You can click on that, and from there you can adjust the playback speed. So you can slow it down, or if you're like, Kelly, I don't have 30 minutes to watch your video, cool, I get it, then speed me up, and I'll sound like Alvin and the Chipmunks. I don't mind at all. Do whatever works for you. So for the leaves here, I'm adding some shading where they're being tucked underneath the poinsettias, and then also kind of just along those lines. The poinsettia is, I think it's actually a tropical plant, but the leaves and the flowers, like the flowering part, are actually just the part of the same leaves that just change color. So they look pretty similar. I chose, when I drew them, to add lines to the leaves to kind of set them apart, but they are the same thing. I also did some blue-green leaves. For the winter blooms, I did the pink amaryllis, and then the hellebores I'm going to do purple. I tried to keep it pretty consistent. Like with the candy cane, I did the hellebores purple as well. So that way they were matchy-matchy, because that's how I roll. But you don't necessarily have to do that if you don't mind them not matching. I like when when they match all together, when I know I'm going to be taking pictures of them. So that's just me. But also, this would be fun to give as a set. You could give that like a white elephant or a last minute gift if you needed one. Get them kind of set up with, 3 or 4 variations of cards and tags that they could use. So here, everything's colored. I'm going to use their coordinating dies to cut them out for the Peaceful Christmas flowers, as well as the winter blooms. Remember, I told you in the beginning that the Candy Cane Christmas doesn't have a die, which means I am going to have to fussy cut it. The only thing I can tell you with fussy cutting is make sure you cut it down to be smaller. Otherwise, it's going to pull on your scissors and you're not going to get a clean cut. Also, keep your scissors straight and use your non-dominant hand to turn the image. So here is kind of all my pieces parts, and I'm trying to lay them out to see. I told you before, like, I cut them out of the colored cardstock because I thought I was just going to fit a tag back in there and then add the colored piece over top with the sentiment, but I didn't love it. And you know what? That's okay, because we can revamp. We don't have to, we're not married to anything here. So what I ended up doing was pulling out the basics die and this archway. And I'm going to cut 3 of these arches out of white, and I'm going to use that to build my card. Now, I ended up using the colored tags to add to my my tags already, so that they kind of have 2 and they're a little bit more festive. But you don't have to. You don't need them at all. You wouldn't need to cut them out at all unless you really like that look. So for the sentiments, I'm getting all of them down. I'm stamping all of them in black on white. And then I'm just going to use that same intense black ink from Picket Fence that I have been stamping in. I stamped it to do my watercoloring and my Copa coloring. It works for both. And now I'm going to use it with my sentiments. For my sub-sentiments, I am going to kind of match it to that tag. So I'm going to use the plum colored cardstock with the plum colored tag, the evergreen, the dark teal. So all of those. The Happy New Year and Have a Blessed Holiday, it has dies for this itself. The Hope Your Holidays Are Sweet is actually from the Candy Cane Christmas, and again, that one does not have a die. So I just cut it into a little rectangle label, and that was good. Here, I've laid out all of my pieces, because when I'm working on multiples, I prefer an assembly style. So I'm go ahead and lining those up. Here is that white tag that looks totally pristine thanks to our magic mat. I wanted to show you could also use a color to back that, but I'm going to use the white, and this would be where I would stamp my to you or from, or write them a little Merry Christmas note, or who it's going to, whatever. I'm just going to attach those to each other, and then I'm going to add the little pulls. So I did cut these also out of the colored cardstock and out of white. So I'm going to put the white on the colored tag and the colored cardstock on the stamped tag. And then I will use the white ring on the stamped tag and the colored ring on the colored tag. I hope I said that so that it makes sense. Once those are all assembled, I just have some baker's twine, and I'm going to match the ends up. I'm going to feed both ends through the tags, create a loop on the other side, and then fold those 2 ends right through the loop and pull it tight. And then that will give me my tag that I can then tie on to my gift bag or, my wrapped gift, whichever I would like. So now we have some white card bases. Remember in the beginning, I told you I knew that these were cut smaller. And so I'm going to have that white mat, and I'm just going to glue these down flat. For the archway from that basic, I think it's Basics greeting set, I'm not going to, there's their matching little tag. I'm not going to adhere the archway down yet. And you can see with this one, the arch doesn't completely cover it up, like where the tag was cut, but I've positioned my flowers where it will. Those flowers will cover any parts that the arch does not. And this one I'm kind of doing like they're like catty corner from each other. So 2 flowers on the bottom right, 1 flower in the top left, working in that visual triangle. I'm going to put my sentiment right in the middle, the season's greetings, and then the sub-sentiment will go right underneath that, have a blessed holiday. Those were both popped up on foam up above our florals. And then the reason I have not attached down my arch is because I also want to pop that up. Since these are going to be hand delivered, I feel like there's no need to spare myself the interest of some added height. And so I popped both of them up, And then I did that with all of them. All of them I put together the same way. I am then going in and I'm going to add some rhinestones. I used the light blue from, I love this rhinestone mix, and I use it constantly. But I can never remember the name of it. Speed of light, speed of sound something. But anyway, it's got like ones that change colors and blue ones, and it's just a good set. It has a lot of different sizes of rhinestones. Love it. So then I'm going to add some white gel pen details. I do like to color in my edges for my dies, so I did go in and do that. And then here we'll take one final look at the card and the tag that matches it. You can see that the color is a little bit more intense when we're coloring over that watercolor, which I adore. I love the way all of these came out. It's non-traditional Christmas colors, but I still think they totally read as holiday. And we were able to get a tag and a card out of one background, saving us supplies and time, stretching those supplies. I love that. I'm here for it. And then here there are all three. So I hope that this inspires you guys. Thank you so much for joining me. I always appreciate your time, and I will catch you on the next video. Oh, and don't forget about the 30% off sale. It's only good until midnight on the 23rd. Okay, bye.